Hello, I'm Carrie Zink, and this is really very interesting for me. I come from a whole different world, no pun intended. I'm a neuroscientist, a cognitive neuroscientist, and I am excited to tell you a little bit about virtual reality in medicine, and particularly in this example in medical research. So it's used already in treatment, behavioral treatment strategies for autism and PTSD and things, but this is sort of an example of how we hope virtual reality will be able to give us a more clear understanding of what's going on in the brain and what is going on when the brain is not functioning properly. So just as a brief introduction of where I come from, like Roberto said, I'm an investigator at the Lieber Institute for Brain Development. This is a private, nonprofit research institution, but affiliated with Hopkins Medicine. So all the investigators at Lieber have joint appointments through the School of Medicine at Hopkins. The Research Institute is physically located on the Hopkins campus, so we're there. And the sort of mission and the goal of what we're trying to do there is to understand the biology underlying mental illness and then translate that into clinical advances. So at the Lieber Institute, they have stem cell researchers, animal researchers, molecular biologists, a huge drug development group, but I am here on behalf of the clinical research division. So two of the disorders, just by way of orienting you, that Lieber is sort of probably primarily interested in at this point is schizophrenia and autism. And both of these disorders are pretty prevalent in the United States. So together it's about 7 million people. And they do have sort of a huge cost to the US economy, as you can see there. But from a personal standpoint and a research standpoint, while it would be nice to alleviate that debt for the U.S., it's really about the patients and what they are experiencing. And as Jessica was just telling you, I can tell you from a neuroscience standpoint, people are biologically experiencing everything very differently. But in autism and schizophrenia, both of these disorders share a profound deficit in social dysfunction that's not treated by current medications. So for people with these disorders, navigating the social environment is extraordinarily difficult. And so, for example, in schizophrenia, if you take an antipsychotic medication, it can control your hallucinations and delusions relatively well. But if you've ever had the privilege of interacting with someone with schizophrenia while they're on their medication, they are clearly, generally speaking, still profoundly disabled. And a huge aspect of it is this social dysfunction. So we are very dedicated to trying to understand in the brain social interactions and sort of how it looks and how it looks when it's broken, if you will, and trying to target circuitry to sort of fix it. So fundamental to this sort of social deficit in both of these disorders is something called theory of mind. I'm not sure if any of you have heard of theory of mind. Here's the definition from Wikipedia. The ability to attribute mental states, beliefs, intents, desires to oneself, but also to others, and to understand that others have different beliefs and intentions and perspectives that are different than one's own. So just to give you sort of what this really translates to, if it's a cloudy day and you see somebody, a stranger across the street carrying an umbrella, you assume that they think it's going to rain. That's theory of mind, your ability to say, I think that person thinks it's going to rain. But if that's a friend of yours, Bob, and Bob says, oh no, I don't think it's going to rain today. I think, my friend was over at my house and left his umbrella here and I'm taking it to him. That's why I have it. So now I know, oh, he doesn't think it's going to rain. He just has the umbrella. But now I can assume that the person over there on the street who sees Bob with the umbrella, I think that person thinks that Bob thinks it's going to rain, even though I know really it's not going to rain. So this is what theory of mind is. It's basically being able to infer other people's thoughts. People with schizophrenia and autism cannot do it. It's very, very difficult for them to do this, and it's very isolating. So I could tell you a million anecdotal stories about it, but it's really an isolating, lonely world when you can't appropriately interact with others, and theory of mind is really essential to that. So sarcasm or irony is considered the real-life index of theory of mind, and that's because in sarcasm, the only difference between that and a lie is what you infer the person wants you to understand from what they're saying. So if I walk you through it, a literal statement, so if I like cookies, and I say, I like cookies, that's a true statement, and I want you all, I expect that you all understood that as true. If I'm trying to lie to you, even though I like cookies, I'll say, I don't like cookies. I'm lying to you, so I intend for you to think that I don't like cookies, because that's what I told you. But really, I do like cookies, so it's a lie. With sarcasm, again, I'm saying an untrue statement. I don't like cookies, but I'm saying it, oh yeah, I don't like cookies. I'm saying an untrue statement, but I intend for you to know that actually means I do like cookies. And in sarcasm, in particular, people with autism and schizophrenia, as well as other disorders, I do a lot of work also with traumatic brain injury. It becomes very isolating. People don't know, they can't understand, and people, turns out, are much more sarcastic than many people think. I always give the example of a very high-functioning autistic research assistant I had, and I would tell her, oh, if this result's significant and this one's not and this one is, that would be amazing because it would mean this and this. And then she comes in my office and shows me exactly, I'm like, oh my God, we just cured the world. And I said, oh my God, shut up. Are you serious? That's what they are? And she thought I wanted her to shut up. And I'm like, no, remember, that's a good thing. She's like, yeah, it's confusing. Why'd you say shut up if it's good? And it's that kind of, I was like, wow, this is, and she's very high functioning. So it really hits home how and she talked about how difficult it was in school growing up and not really being able to understand people. So what we do with that is identify these things that are dysfunctional and then try to understand how that is being processed in the brain and how we can fix it. So the technology that we use is called functional MRI. I don't know if you've ever heard of functional MRI. Probably, maybe you have. It's the same machine as a regular MRI that you would go to at the hospital if you needed to have an MRI. But it's tweaked to measure brain activity in real time in an awake behaving human instead of just structure or something. So it's actually measuring the brain activity. And the way the setup traditionally works is they lie down on this bed. You see at the sort of closest to where the bore of the scanner is, there's a thing that looks kind of like a bird cage. It comes down over their head. On top of it is a little, you see something sticking up, that's a mirror. And what happens is the person goes sort of all the way into that bore. This is from the back of the scanner. And we set up a screen in the back and then have a projector, which we're sitting in a control room in another room with a computer, projecting much like this is projecting, but it's going through the ceiling, all the way around into that, the projector, and projecting on the back, and the person's lying in the scanner. The mirror is positioned in a way that they see behind them, so they see the screen behind them, and then we have them do whatever task we want to know what the brain activity is doing, and they're responding with a little button box there. So just by virtue of this setup, I should say what we're trying to do here then is to look and say, okay, during whatever we're looking at, sarcasm or whatever, this is what healthy brain activity looks like, this is what someone with schizophrenia's brain looks like, and it's telling us where the circuitry is different and also what needs to be done to fix it. So in this very simple example, the circuitry is generally the same, but the schizophrenics seem to have less activity. Sometimes they have more activity. Sometimes they have it in completely different circuitries. So we're basically trying to get these measures. And we're trying to do this with sarcasm and theory of mind and get at these social deficits. The problem is the fMRI environment is just non-social. They are lying in a tube by themselves without us even in the room. We're in a whole other control room. So it's just very difficult to accurately study in the brain what someone is experiencing during a social interaction when they're lying in a scanner looking at a screen behind them. So just to give you an example of sort of the pathetic, and you'll never want tax dollars to go to research again, this is a published study from 2013, sort of showing, I know it's hard to see, but how how sarcasm has been investigated in fMRI previously. So if you look just on the far left side, that's the irony or sarcastic situation. You're told that the little blue shapes at the front are you in the scanner, and then you sort of see this, it's supposed to look like a skiing scene in the background, and they have two pictures of people just pasted on there that you don't know. And the guy says, I'm going to try the advanced course, how about you? And you see that on your screen, and then it goes to the next screen, and you're reading this thing that says, you got scared looking down the big slope, you miserably went down with help from your friend. And then it goes to the third screen, and you see a little thing of that guy saying, you're a good skier. And they look to say, what happened in the brain? Because clearly that's sarcasm. Now, you see things light up in the brain, but from a neuroscientist standpoint, especially at the Lieber Institute, where it's not just about publishing what happened in the brain, we are very dedicated to actually taking it to the next level and designing the treatment. And we really need to very precisely be able to identify the circuitry that is really being affected in real life, and then be able to alter it and have it be effective in an actual real life situation. This is where I started talking to Gabo and Roberto, and then to Gabo about if there's a way, this filmmaking. I wasn't even thinking virtual reality at first. I was just like, can we make like just a little movie that would be a little more realistic for someone to be watching? Film is totally not my area. I was like, is this even possible? Can you get actors? He's like, yes, we can get actors. Yes, yes, you could do that. And he's like, do you want this or that? I'm like, I don't know. I just want a movie that does sarcasm. And so you all, this is a whole new world. This has been an interesting, I went back to lab. I'm like, they said they can do it. They can make a movie. Turns out that's what you all do. So, for us, this is really exciting because the other thing about MRI is that it uses a big magnet and you can't have any metal in the room. So the equipment is all fiber optics and very, made very special for MRI. But virtual reality goggles for MRI do exist. And usually, to date, this has kind of been used to look at like social navigation things and what's going on in the brain during spatial navigation. But it's not been used so much for social aspects. But for me, I see huge potential in this because for the first time, if you really can have the person feel immersed in a virtual reality, you've just transformed this very non-social situation into a realistic social environment. And that is critical to understand really what's happening in the brain. And for the first time ever, we feel we're on the verge of doing that. So just to give a shout out, we have a strong collaboration with the University of Edinburgh for this project, and they're very excited because often when we make social paradigms and do things with social settings, it's really only able to be used in the culture that it was created for various reasons. But we had talked about making a British accent version of this and being able to use it more. The other thing is once these paradigms are created, we want to look at it to compare autism to healthy or schizophrenic to healthy and identify these circuitries and look at how genetics affect it and try and really tease out the molecular underpinnings and create the drug to fix it. But once the sort of virtual reality fMRI paradigm is created, you can use it for anything. So if somebody wants to use it for traumatic brain injury, it's there. If they want to use it for looking at genetics, it's there. And the other thing is apparently you, not me, can make a parallel, a sort of complementary version of the MRI test for outside the MRI environment. And then that obviously has more freedom and more agency with the subject, but you can sort of combine that data and sort of really get a realistic view of what is going on in the brain during real-time social interaction. So I thank you for your work, and not only for my own entertainment, and not only to help the world, but also in our medical research. So that's all.